receive 7.5 million acre-feet per year, as dictated by the compact. This just shows you where all of those, this is in million acre-feet, where all those million acre-feet go. Again, California is the biggest user. Colorado is the second. If you look at Yuma, Arizona, so Yuma, Arizona was on the border between the US and Mexico. They had a water flow gauge there for a long time. This is the data from 1878 to 1995. You can see that the annual discharge, again in million acre-feet, is pretty variable by year based on how much precipitation is washed into the basin. However, there is an undeniable trend that as you add more dams to that river, less and less water makes it to Yuma. What's the big deal about that? And my plug for side readings is if anyone wants to read Cadillac Desert or The Monkey Wrench Gang, both of those are great books about sort of the environmental movement that arose about the construction of these dams. What's the big deal? There's no water in Yuma, Arizona. Why does that matter? What's on the other side of Yuma, Arizona? What's right next to Yuma? A desert and Mexico. So the fact is that we in the United States have taken every single drop of a river that flows into another country. If you think about the international consequences of water management, we have stopped the flow of a river from entering another country. And no one really said anything about it. For a long time, this wasn't considered a problem. This was just water management. People didn't necessarily think about the ecological consequences of it. They didn't think about the international consequences of it. I mean, some of that has to do with the relative strength and negotiating powers of the two countries. But the example I started with was how in times of conflict, it was so horrible that Saddam Hussein had drained the Mesopotamian marshes. Well, we actually drained the delta of northern Mexico as well. Not in such an aggressive, vindictive way against a population, but inadvertently through our environmental policies, we have affected the entire ecology of the northern Gulf of California, which is in another country. So I bring it up as one of those examples of environmental policy has huge impacts culturally, socially, internationally for what we do. There are, and hopefully this will play, there's a couple great movies about this issue. This is just the trailer for one called Chasing Water. Oh, wait, pause. I think yes, I wonder you can hear the sound. I have it on mute. Let me try again. So this man decides to walk Colorado.
Still pretty low.
Turn it.
It's not mute, but the volume is low.
We'll just do that. It's a small room. Dam. Las Vegas. So I haven't actually seen the whole film, but I figured that would give you an idea of, walking down. That's an environmental advocacy film, obviously, but it gives you an idea of sort of actively what the end of the river looks like. This has made national attention now. So initially I said that people weren't aware of the issue. It is starting to make the local papers, but what you can see here is this is part of the historic Colorado River floodplain. Salton Sea, I have a whole nother lecture on the strange ecology of the Salton Sea. But Yuma is here, and all of this area in the hatched mark is dramatically changed because they were wetlands and they no longer exist. And the most impacted ecosystem is here in the dotted line, which has now been made a biosphere reserve because of the nature of the endangered species that are in here. This is a no fishing zone, so the entire fishery which supported this delta region has been shut down as well. Similar to what we talked about with the Mesopotamian example. So you've changed both the cultures and the ecology of what exists at the end of the river. There is a 1944 treaty between the United States and Mexico where we say that we will allow 1.5 million acre-feet to cross the border with Mexico. And this represents, that would cover 1.5 million acres to a depth of 1 foot. But we do allow that little bit, and it only lasts to here. So there is a tiny bit used by Mexico, but none of it reaches the Gulf of California. So this was a picture that you see in the video. If you go to the Gulf of California, this is the terminus of the Colorado River, just before it enters that gulf. If you look at it from overhead, this is a 2001 aerial imagery where you can see there is still some water coming up these channels, but most of this is just like the Mesopotamian example, lacking surface water flow. What has that meant? This is just a suite of some of the endangered species impacts. So these are species listed on Mexico's Endangered Species Act, which is fairly similar to the United States one. The desert pupfish is listed as an endangered species both in Mexico and in the United States. The Yuma clapperrail is sort of an awkward chicken-like bird that is listed in both countries. The bobcat is listed. The vaquita porpoise is the world's smallest marine mammal, so it sort of has that rarity aspect to it in general. It is a species of special concern in the United States and endangered as Mexico, and they think that there's only about 200 vaquita left in the world. Most of them live in the northern Gulf of California. These are the little vaquita here. The totuaba is ecologically extinct. It's sort of this huge steel blue colored fish that grows up to be almost 2 meters, sort of 7 feet long, and it can weigh up to 300 pounds. It once supported a commercial fishery. This is an example of a totuaba, and that fishery was closed in 1975. So it's both an example of overexploitation in terms of fishing and lack of water within the delta. And the last example on here is the Colorado Delta clam, which was once an extremely abundant species and is now almost absent. So if you look at these pie graphs, this is the Colorado clam here in the blue. You can see it was almost 90% before the dams were built. There was a Keone species and some other clams. Overall, there's been a reduction in the number of clams that exist, but most of those are now the Keone clam. You have a little blue circle, which is the Colorado Delta clam. I put this picture up. These are the shells that you can see on the beaches of the Delta today. All of them are dead, but they are all the Colorado Delta So you can